Welcome, James, and thank you for participating in this series. Please feel free to begin.
All right, thank you very much, Erica. So without further ado, we will get started here. So before I talk about my project, I'd like to talk a little bit about what inspired me to do this work and the origins of where this came from. So the inspiration for what I've done comes from a project done by Edward Gonzalez Tennant on something called the Rosewood Massacre. This happened the Rosewood Massacre took place in the first week of January 1923 in Florida and targeted Black men in the town of Rosewood. A white woman there by the name of Frances Taylor claimed that she was assaulted by these men, and tensions in the town, when news spread of this, boiled over following that the townsfolk had learned that their prisoner had escaped from a chain gang. The resulting violence from this, official totals indicate that at least 6 people, Black people, died and 2 white people, but eyewitness accounts suggest that anywhere from 27 to 150 may have perished in these tragic events. Edward Gonzalez Tennant decided to do a virtual recreation on his research in Rosewood. And in the picture here, we can see an example of part of his recreation. Now, he is using the gaming platform known as Second Life. And his recreation was twofold. One, he wanted to recreate the virtual landscape of Rosewood, and we can see an example of one of the buildings in the town on the left of the image. On the right side, we can see a player looking at a virtual exhibit, telling information about the town and about the massacre itself. When I found out about this while doing my early master's work at Western, and being a video gamer myself, I started wondering, could Minecraft, a game that I really enjoyed, possibly connect with archaeology? And that's where we got started. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about archaeology and its use of video games outside of my project. Archaeology and the topic of archaeology is seen in many video games, and on the left, we can see an example from the popular video game World of Warcraft. In this game, players are assigned different areas throughout the map that they can go and visit to and dig up old relics and treasures and learn about cultures and get new rewards. And this is an unfortunately problematic example that features more on finding an item and it having value without any real understanding of what was around that item, what did it mean, what does it tell us about the culture and the people's lives that interacted with it. How did it get there? A lot of things are missing, and it harkens back to examples such as Lara Croft Tomb Raider or Indiana Jones of public notion. So as I said, this can be quite problematic. On the other hand, many archaeologists who try to bring video games into their work and use them as virtual platforms run into some problems. And we can see an example here on the right of some of these attempts. And they really fit into 2 categories. One is archaeologists using older and out-of-date platforms because they're cost effective. They don't cost very much, they're easy to get a hold of, but they don't necessarily then have a wide player base anymore. And the visual representation is so outdated that it's sometimes off-putting to any community that they're trying to reach. On the other hand, when archaeologists might have higher budgets and are using state-of-the-art technology, these often come at very high prices and may not have a wide distribution range, so that the general public may not know of its existence. So again, the distribution and impact of what they're doing is very limited. So let's talk a little bit about Fort St. Joseph. The design of my project, which I'll get into here momentarily, is set to be very broad. It can be done at any archaeological site given the right materials. So then the question becomes, why did I choose Fort St. Joseph, aside from it being conveniently located at the school that I was doing my master's? Well, there are two main benefits from the archaeology done at Fort St. Joseph that were critical to me developing this product to be the best it could. The first is the rigorous documentation done at the field school and all archaeological activities conducted at Fort St. Joseph. Without the extensive records of artifact collections, unit excavations, photographs, and more, there's no way I would have enough detailed information to be able to recreate a unit in Minecraft, an archaeological unit in Minecraft. So therefore, I wouldn't have been able to create the product. The second benefit is the extensive public outreach and education wing of the project, such as the talks like we're having tonight. This created a ready audience for me, already interested in the fort and its history, that I could then distribute the project to when I was done. So let's talk a little bit about the goals of my work at Fort St. Joseph. The first question is, why Minecraft? There are many different video games that could have been chosen as a virtual platform to house an archaeological excavation in a virtual presence. But Minecraft has a lot of benefits. The first being the cost of the platform. It's about $27 per license for an individual. And this $27 includes all updates throughout the future of the game. So it's very cost effective. It's easy to use. New players within only a few minutes can get accustomed to the world, start moving around, exploring, building, and doing different things. It's also very popular. Minecraft was originally created by the programmer Notch and the company Mojang. But a few years ago, it was purchased from them by Microsoft for a cost of $2.5 billion. So clearly there's a great deal of investment going on in this game. And since it's purchased by Microsoft, the development has exploded beyond what we've seen when it was worked on at Mojang. So therefore, not only was a lot of money invested at the time, money is being continued to be invested. It now being developed to work cross-platform so that players on computers, phones, iPads, video game consoles like the Xbox or PlayStation will eventually be able to build together in a single unified universe. So therefore, we have a platform that's well established, it's easy to use, it's cost effective, and for those of you that have young children or in some cases adult children, you can imagine just how easy it is to try and convince them to play Minecraft on any given day. So therefore, I found this was a really beneficial platform. We can also talk a little bit about the world of Minecraft itself, beyond just its applicability to the public audience. As you can see here in the picture, while the graphics might look pixelated, the world of Minecraft is based around a 1 by 1 by 1 unit cube called the block. All the world and everything in it is created based on these cubes, so therefore it's very easy for me to create a different scale. All I have to do is say that one block equals 1 feet, 2 feet, a meter, anything like that. So what did I want to do with this project itself, now that we've talked a little bit about Minecraft? The first was I wanted to create a system for recreating an archaeological excavation unit within Minecraft. To my knowledge at the time, no one had ever done this before, and at least not in a way that could be easily recreated from one site to another. And the second was to develop interpretive material targeted at school children in grades 3 through 5. I chose these grades because at that time, their units in social studies are primarily focused around local and early North American history, which ties in directly with Fort St. Joseph. All right, so now we're moving into the recreation itself. This is what you will see when you enter the world that I've built. And I designed what's known as the spawn hub in colloquial Minecraft terms to look something a little bit like an old fort with the wooden walls decorated carpet on the grounds. In the center, we can see the start lever, and when the player enters the game, they will push that lever. To start it, it changes a few settings for the player, and that's mainly to focus them into building and less into the killing of monsters or things like that that come with Minecraft. It also opens the little door that you can see just to the bottom left of the start lever. And in the chest there contains a booklet that tells them a bit about the project and how to get started, along with the tools they need to complete the unit excavation. Now you can see two signs, one on each side of the lever. These take you to the areas where the recreation is, and I did the recreations in two scales. 1 at 1 block equals 5 centimeters, and 1 at 1 block equals 10 centimeters. I chose to do 2 scales instead of 1 because I wanted to give teachers and players a variety of time in their experience. Whereas one person or class might only have an hour to do this, someone might have a day or a week to do this. And I'd like to choose the different scales and different details based on how much time they might have to do. And as I found in my research, there's a real direct correlation between the scale in a project or resolution. So in other words, how detailed an image or recreation might look and how long it takes to both produce and then play. The higher the resolution, the more time it takes to produce, and the longer in this case it would take to excavate. You can imagine a 1 meter unit that is in one block to 10 centimeters, so 10 blocks versus 1 block to 5 centimeters, so 20 blocks. Those are going to take different times to excavate. Once our player pushes the button there, they are taken to the information room. And this is sort of the core of the recreation outside of where the unit was placed. And as you can see, lining the walls on the top photo are examples of artifacts and ecofacts that were found in the unit that I chose. And in the photo on the bottom left, you can see an example of one that I've labeled called non-diagnostic stone, or basic stone found at Fort St. Joseph. And as the player is going along and excavating, which I'll show you on the next slide, they'll come across these artifacts and ecofacts. And going beyond the prior examples of archaeology in video games, instead of them just finding something and moving on, they have to come and learn about it. So they then re-enter this information room and put it in the chest on the top. And through a system I developed, it passes through a series of identifying objects, which I'll show you later in the presentation. And once its ID is correct, it opens a further chest below it. And you can see on the top slide, all the spaces below where the artifacts are closed, but when the correct artifact is placed in, it then opens up. In that chest, players will find an information booklet that tells them a little bit about what they found, so what the artifact means, where it was located. And sometimes it also asks a follow-up question, prompting them to deeper thought about what it might mean to find a piece of diagnostic stone or bone or a gun part at Fort St. Joseph. And when they're finally done, when they found all the artifacts, you can see on the photo on the right, at the very end of the room, a door opens and they're given an answer booklet. Now, this isn't a cut and dry answer. There's no real hard right and wrong answer in history and archaeology like you might think of in math. So these are what I would consider the best answers for this. Now I'll take a look at the unit recreation room itself. And I've done a cutaway on this so you can see, instead of just a flat surface, what the unit that we were excavating in. And as you can see sloping down, there's a lot of wood on the left photo in the top right corner there. And that's because the unit that I chose happened to have a tree stump in it. And you can see the stump and roots from that tree extending throughout the walls of the unit, which I preserved behind glass so the players will have that intact. Now we can see on the right here a top-down view of what the unit might look like. And I thought about doing this bird's eye perspective by thinking back to myself and when I'm excavating in the field. Oftentimes I would stand up from a unit to try and get a better perspective on what I was looking at instead of having my face being 6 inches or a foot away from the ground surface, it's nice to stand up and get a better distance perspective. And so I incorporated this elevated platform for players to be able to do just that. Walk up here and get a different perspective on what's happening. And we can see changing from where we're standing on the surface of the unit on the left to being above it on the right, that the soil changes as you're sloping down and how it changes in color become much more evident. And players work through this unit recreation just like you would in the field, layer by layer, level by level, learning what's there and what it might mean. So now we move on. Once the players found all the artifacts there, as I mentioned earlier, the room in the information room opens up to reveal the answer booklet, and then also takes them to a house recreation that I built at the very end to give them an example of what a house may have looked like at Fort St. Joseph, given French colonial design techniques, and we can see the vertical construction of logs with clay spaced between them, much like we believe the houses at Fort St. Joseph would have had. Now that we've talked a little bit about the player's experience, I'd like to bring you to the back end and how I went about building the unit itself. Now, I could have just stacked the unit and built it right in place in the hole that I dug out in Minecraft. But if I made a mistake, then I'd have to dig through all of what I just created to fix it. And it's inevitable to make mistakes in processes like this. So instead, I laid it out in a grid, as we can see here in the photo on the left. Each level of the unit was given its own layer and built there, and then stacked individually to see the tower on the bottom right. So that's the full unit level stacked on top of each other. This way, if I made a mistake, all I had to do was just fix it in the level that I built it in, and then restack the layers. And we can see that all the artifacts are contained in the chests in the photos here. On the right-hand side, we can see the full extent of the entire recreation. The unit recreations are housed in blue to kind of condense the player and limit their field of view so that they're better able to focus on the recreation itself. You can see the information rooms, and then the space where I laid out the 2 scales of unit recreations behind them. And on the far right, we can see the hub room where players spawn in, and then the house recreation just above it. Next, I'd like to talk a bit about Redstone Mechanics. And Redstone in Minecraft is a combination of computing and also electricity. And it is by this that I had the functions to be able to take artifacts that I had labeled, pass them through a system to identify them, and then also trigger the door that opened at the end to reveal the question and answer book. And we can see in the bottom right how this system was done. Here we can see a chest where the artifact was placed, and it moves along a series of devices known as hoppers. Now, these hoppers are items in Minecraft that transport material from one place to another. So the artifact then moves along here and is dropped down to something called a comparator. And this basically registers what is in a hopper and outputs a signal in Redstone, or turns this little red line on. And we can see a blown up example of this in the photograph on the left. And in there we see a placeholder along with 3 artifacts. Now originally there's only 2, but this one's been activated, so there are 3. And because I have 2 artifacts placed in there, it will only add 1 when it finds a corresponding artifact, therefore increasing the signal and running it through the wires, as we can see in the photo there again on the right, to open a door below the chest to reveal the question and information booklet, and in this case also to open the door at the end of the recreation and reveal the answer book, and then the path to the house recreation. So that was generally the project that I worked on at Fort St. Joseph. And as Erica mentioned, I'm now up here in the Keweenaw Michigan Technological University and I'm a now employee of the National Park Service. And we have started here at Keweenaw National Historical Park the very first Minecraft project of any park in the United States. So the question becomes, A, how did I get here? But what's more interesting is this project wouldn't have happened if I hadn't started the work at Fort St. Joseph. So it's directly based on what I learned there. And here in the Keweenaw and at the park here, there's a ladder here, and the Minecraft project that we started really comes as a natural evolution of things that were already happening at the park with my coworker, Lynette. Starting with her work in something called Missing in the Copper Country, which was a photograph series where she would take historic photos and overlay them on modern photos to show buildings that no longer were standing here in Calumet, Michigan, where the park is headquartered. From there, she thought, well, okay, let's give kids an opportunity to actually build something like this. And so starting with Legos and then recreating a historical map, as we can see in that second photograph rung of the ladder, she started thinking about how to rebuild the physical space, railroads. We also partner very closely with Michigan Technological University, where I'm doing my Ph.D, in the development of what's known as the Keweenaw Time Traveler. And if you're not aware of this, I highly recommend you Google it and find their website, because it's a wonderful virtual geospatial database that they've created. Now, what is a virtual geospatial database, you're probably wondering. In simple terms, it's a very advanced Google Maps. They have referenced many historical maps in here, and they've also added tons of information, not just them, but with the help of the public here and abroad in the United States. So when you find a building, you don't just see a building, you see the history of the building through these layers of historical maps, information tagged about what the building might have been made out of, all this different types of information. And the park has partnered with them to help in the development. And so when Lynette and myself met and bringing our two heads together, we then started wondering, okay, I've done archaeology in Minecraft before, and she's been working on developing these programs in the park. Could we shift to not just do archaeology, but recreate and scale the built historical environment in Minecraft? And the result of our questions is this. This was what's known as our alpha build. And this was the test run as we looked to start this build at the park. And we'll see now a short video of the small portion of Calumet that we recreated historically in approximately 1917 to scale. And here we are flying around what is just on the sort of center of downtown Calumet, or what is historically known as the south side of Red Jacket. We can see on the right, the green building was an old warehouse. This is the Coliseum where Hockeytown, USA was. And most of this recreation, while we helped out a great deal, was actually built by students around the 12 to 14 year age range. And we can see some of the historic buildings here. On the right, some of the miners' houses, looking back towards some of the central area where the Calumet and Hecla mines were located. On the top here, we can see a turnaround for train cars known as a roundhouse. And not only in this could we see some of the history of the mines, but if you have your sound on, you can also hear some of it as well. And that was a recreation of what's known as a man engine, which is an old series of mechanized steps to get into the mines. And we didn't just recreate what was above ground, but the Keweenaw, being known for its copper mining history, we also wanted to recreate what was below ground in the mines directly below Calumet. So with that, our project was started this summer, and we began the work of shifting this into a much larger scale. In our current build, we are working to recreate the entire area of Calumet, which is approximately 1.5 miles by 2 miles to scale in Minecraft, which, if you know anything about Minecraft, that's about 6.5 by 8,000 blocks, which is quite the monumental undertaking. And we've chosen the scale 1 block equals 2 feet for this recreation because it is a good combination of both detail and time. And we can see in some of the pictures here, some of the recent work that we've been doing and recreating just a very small block in historic downtown Calumet. And it's not just us at the park that have been working on it, but in the top right photo, you can see a picture of myself and Lynette's avatar in Minecraft, along with 2 of our builders from the general public who we've invited to help us build on our server, which is live. And in the top left, you can see a high resolution photo of the work that we've done fairly currently to date, recreating everything from houses. You can see in the bottom left one of the churches, numerous churches that were in downtown Calumet. On the top left, in the very top left of that photo, you can see the recreation of the Calumet Theater. So all different kinds of buildings. We also have a page on Keweenaw National Historic Park's website that you can check out to learn a little bit more about what we're doing right now. And we also have a free map to download that has 4 interactive activities based on the recreation that we've done that you can see on the screen now. There are 2 scavenger hunts that focus on the lives of the people who lived and worked in Calumet, an archaeology dig, and there's also a building competition based on the evidence that you uncover when you do it. And this is free to the public. Anyone with a Java version of Minecraft can come to the park's website, download this, and explore it for themselves. And we are also open to working with builders to add to this massive undertaking. So any of you who are interested can get in contact with me. And we would love to have you come join us on our server and help us build. To wrap things up, I'd like to talk a little bit about the future directions of this project. While we're working with the general public and hoping to get some classrooms involved with students here in the area building their own history, we're mainly focused right now on the above ground landscape. Because coming to Minecraft this summer, copper, which is the main resource known for being mined here in the UP, at least in the Keweenaw, is going to be a native component of Minecraft. And we are doing this completely in base game, so you don't have to add anything else. Anybody with a basic Java copy of Minecraft can work with our product. And this summer, copper will be there, so we can actually build sections of the copper mines directly below the city recreation that we are building right now that will have copper in it. And we are also looking at hopefully developing some education packets for educators, and also looking at possibly doing some process-based recreation. So by that, I mean, instead of recreating and building, recreating the process using Redstone that I talked about earlier to say, with the push of a button, break apart a bunch of copper ore that is stacked up, transport it somewhere, and smelt it, which were all things that happened in the Keweenaw. So thank you very much for your time, and I will now take what questions have come in.
So, James, to start us off, thank you. That was really, really interesting. I guess I didn't realize all of the cool things you can do in Minecraft. So we'll now move to the Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. But to begin, I kind of have a question about the artifacts. So you said that you could include artifacts in Minecraft. Do they actually look like what they would in real life, or are they more of a blocky aspect? Is there a picture? What does that look like?
Okay, so that's a great question. So the answer of all of it is both yes and no.
Okay.
So in the recreation that I did for Fort St. Joseph, I used the best placeholders I could find when they were available. So there's bone in Minecraft, so I could use a bone. There's stone in Minecraft, so I could use that. But a frizzen or other gun parts, that's not unfortunately not in Minecraft. So I chose to use colored wool blocks that have been renamed with the artifact's name, and that's a very common aspect in Minecraft. There's a genre of maps called Complete the Monument, where players search a wide expanse for different colored blocks of wool, bring them back to the center, and they complete the map once they found all the blocks of wool. So I was able to tag into that. Now, if I wanted to go beyond just the base game and include mods, and mods are packets of code and information that allow vast expanses of difference to go well beyond the base game structure of Minecraft. You could import actual pictures of artifacts and have them be represented in photorealism in Minecraft.
Okay, that sounds all right. So it's a little bit of both, but
Yep.
there are options for people that want to do. Can anyone create the world's end? You said that you have people that are already players and they are tagging onto your build, so anyone can develop this type of world?
Absolutely. Yep, anyone with a copy of Minecraft not only can play both the map that I released from Fort St. Joseph, which is free to the public, along with all the maps that we were releasing at the park. They can also come and join us on the server to help us build. And they can also, based on the groundwork that I laid at Fort St. Joseph and we're laying at the park right now, other institutions such as Fort St. Joseph, if they wanted to do an above ground recreation of the fort, could absolutely do so. There's nothing holding them back from doing it.
Okay, great. Are the maps available in Minecraft Education Edition community maps for schools?
Not currently, they are not. We developed this in Java because it's the most currently and was the most widely distributed version, but we are looking right now into how the maps may translate. There are ways to convert maps from one type to another. So the version you play on your phone or iPad is different than a game console, which is different than education, which is different than Java. So we're looking at how exactly to convert from one to the other.
Okay,
So to some that currently know they're not on education.
Okay, and then can you add sounds throughout wherever you want, as long as you have the sound? Because someone's kind of questioning whether the TNT is that makes a boom sound.
Yes, the dynamite does make a boom sound. So sounds are tied to the interaction with specific types of blocks. So the sound of someone walking on stone versus gravel is different. TNT makes a boom sound. There are things called note blocks, which play different types of drum beats or tunes, and you can change what pitch they are. And with mods, you can go well beyond that.
Okay. Do you think that in the future that you'll be able to kind of expand beyond what the build that you're working on to even take it further? Like you talked about a little bit about your further directions, but do you see it going outside and or other places across the United States doing this? Where do you
Yes, I absolutely do so. There are currently at least 2 other parks in the system who are starting in various phases on their own projects. And we are very hopeful that this is going to grow and expand, not just throughout the Park Service, but hopefully throughout other institutions who are interested in history and education and interpretation throughout the country. I personally believe it's an ideal platform for it.
How long does it take to build the world? I know that, like, I know there's different scales. Obviously, the one that you built for Fort St. Joseph was much smaller than the one that you're currently working on. But for the one that you were doing for Fort St. Joseph, that has 2 units and then the reconstruction, about how long do you think that that took you to do?
Oh, goodness. In the hundreds of hours, I would say.
Okay.
So it's not a small investment of time. But that's really going to depend on the builder's familiarity with Minecraft, the version that they're working in, that changes. So as new versions release and change, there are various software packages that can help make things move faster, that we are utilizing on our server to help speed things up here at the park. So that's really variable, but in my experience, I would say in the hundreds of hours.
Okay, just trying to get a gauge for those that are out there looking to do this at their institution, how much time that they would be kind of.
Yeah, the other thing that they could do is start small with just a test build. Let's say they want to recreate a house. They can say, okay, I'm gonna go into game and recreate this house, set a timer, see how long it takes you, and then use that as a guide.
Okay, so regarding a school kid, are you, oh, sorry, we're coming in now. Are you correlating with grade level content expectations?
Absolutely. You can find on our website right now a whole list of grade level content information in terms of what relates to our first map release and the activities involved, and there is going to be more of that to come.
Okay. Have you collaborated during this process or surveyed students to kind of figure out a little bit more on what they're interested in, how to build things in a different way? Have you been in contact with
them? That's a great question. We were hoping to have this kind of immediately be a very public co-built process with students, but unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, we had to put the brakes on that and change things. The builders we have been working with, however, recently have been a wealth of information in co-creating the content that we're in right now. And in the future, when we're able to work with students and get that set up, we will absolutely be taking their ideas and techniques into consideration, and everything that they build will, in our recreation, will be marked based on who built it. So they'll be able to come back and show their family and friends what they built as well.
That sounds awesome. Do you know that if the other parks that you mentioned, are they in Michigan too? Are they working on, or is it more throughout the country?
No, they are. One is in, I think they're both in Nebraska or that area.
Oh, okay, cool. So maybe get some people outside interested in there. And then, so then someone's asking for the site, for the website. I think I shared it on Facebook, and then I can also share it again, and I'll post about the website for the Keweenaw Minecraft as well tomorrow. And how do you think that this application relates to a different kind of game such as Grand Theft Auto?
Oh, interesting. I guess I'll take that in a couple directions. Okay. First, a game like Grand Theft Auto, a lot of the focus is on, I guess I would say, more violent aspects. Not that Minecraft is certainly without that, with player versus player content and fighting enemies and things like that. But Minecraft has the real core mechanic of building things, and people outside what we're doing, outside of historical things, focus entire servers and communities on just building stuff that has nothing to do with fighting anything. And I haven't played much of Grand Theft Auto, so I don't believe there's any real building mechanic in a game like that. But it does have a very atmospheric open world visual to it that's smoother than Minecraft, that some users might find more appealing as it's more sort of photorealistic. And there certainly is a trade-off there. So an interesting comment. I don't think it's a platform I would choose.
Okay.
But if something came around in sort of a blend between the two that was both scalable and more photorealistic, that could be something very interesting to explore in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Can segments be automated to speed up and expand similar items? Yeah.
Yes. So if I think you're asking where this question is going, can you sort of copy and paste large chunks of stuff, of builds that repeat? So you build a house and you've got a row of 7 different houses that look identical. Can you pick one up, copy it, and then paste it? Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so that would definitely speed up things.
Yes.
Another comment and question is, there are attempts of us on the game app Animal Crossing. So any thoughts on that? Are you familiar?
I'm familiar with the game. I have not played it. So I can't really speak to what's been done on there. But I am certainly familiar with it and how popular it is.
It is very popular. I've not played it either, but I do know a lot of people are interested in that as well. Do you have any, what would be the ultimate hopes that you could get out of doing this kind of education outreach? What do you really want to see in schools? Do you want to see it more in museum aspects, both?
I mean, so in terms of where I'd like to see it is everywhere. Unfortunately, we can't house this as a virtual exhibit in a museum due to some of the licensing specifics with Minecraft. You cannot host own a copy of Minecraft and then have it as a host like in a coffee shop or a museum for people to come in and play. That's against, excuse me, the license agreement with Minecraft.
Okay.
But the maps that we build are and freely distribute, that's completely within the licensing.
Okay.
So there is that. But in terms of the project right now, and what really excites me is people building their own history within this, that we're moving outside of this idea that history and archaeology is contained within the hallowed walls of the college, and that's just not the case. Everybody's their own historian and should be able to do this, and hopefully this is a platform and developing means for the way for people to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a great answer. Wow. So I don't see if there's any other questions. I don't think so at the moment. Is there any other things that you want to touch base on? Anything that you thought of last minute of sharing? See if there's another question out there.
Not that I can think of offhand. I think we covered everything.
I think we covered a lot. This sounds like a really great program. I mean, I understand that you can't put it in museums, and I see the problems. Maybe in the future they will adjust for that kind of. But I really like bringing it. We are
certainly hoping so. We would like to get in contact with Mojang, which is a very difficult process given their current setup, to try and talk with them to see if we could find a workaround in the current wording of their licensing agreement so that this could be used in specific cases as virtual museum exhibits. So somebody could walk into the museum there in Niles and be able to, walk around what I've created, or if you create your own sort of above ground game or something like that. I think that would be wonderful.
Sure, but I do like the fact that you can do it at home. So like this past week when they have had school off or anything like that, you're able to kind of bring this in, still do something educational, but make it a little bit more fun.
Right, absolutely. And if you don't, the Keweenaw is hard to get to. We're kind of 5 hours from anywhere. So we're able to reach a much broader audience with this in terms of geography. We're able to reach new audiences such as gamers that parks may have not have had as ready access to in the past. And Minecraft also has other software modifications that allow people who can't use their hands to control it using their eyes through eye tracking.
Oh, cool. I was not aware of that. That's great. Have you done any study? You said that you could reach a broader audience. Have you done to see where people are playing from? Are you able to track that to see where your audience is?
Ooh, so in short, no.
No.
And there's a lot of reasons why. Not currently. You know, as this, you know, we get our content out there, we'd love to see, you know, comments on who's playing it, where they're playing it. You know, especially if people who haven't been to the park before, you know, can get an idea, and if it brings them here in real life would be great. But yeah, it'd be really fun to see eventually in time how broad of a reach it has. I do know as of the end of 2020, there were approximately 200 million active players on Minecraft. Wow. So we have a broad audience throughout the world.
Yeah, that's a huge audience to tap into. That's awesome. Wow. Okay, well, this has been a really good discussion, and I think that you have definitely opened my eyes to some of the features of Minecraft that I wasn't quite aware of. So I really appreciate that, and thank you so much for coming and sticking around for the Q&A.